Service is now in retirement, and he was personally in charge of the investigation into Robert Gala. It seems that Robert Gala had to provide documents to lawyers employed by the French government. The French government wanted to take him to court for stealing their files. So, as the law goes, he had to provide laboratory documents. What the Secret Service did in their very fine laboratory in Washington was test these documents for forgery. And now these documents were each inside a cardboard, a file, a sort of cardboard file. And they found that they'd all been changed on the same date, leaving an impression on the outside of the file. One of the changes was to rename the file as HTLV3 as HIV. Yet he gave these documents to the lawyers. These documents are dated before the name HIV came into use. It wasn't used before 1986. So he actually, quite clearly fraudulent. The evidence was so strong that the congressional investigator, Representative John Dingell, and the Secret Service had these documents presented to a state attorney general for prosecution. And it was ruled out of time because it had taken so many years to uncover this. And therefore, on a technicality, as far as we can judge, he was not prosecuted for this particular fraud. But that's what he said. He says in the email to me, which I've reproduced in my book, I don't believe in hiding anything. So the whole, not censored, the entire attack from him is in the book. And the Secret Service, the guys who will offer testimony, they will say that he's wrong. And I've told Robert Gala that. He has no response at all from him now. I haven't got in touch with Popovic. Popovic was offered a professorship in Robert Gala's new institute in Baltimore. Gala was basically told, I understand, as far as I know, he was told he had to leave the NIH after it was proved he had stolen the French files. A year later, he set up in Baltimore the IHV, his own institute, not HIV, but altered around, where he is currently advising African governments financed by Bill Gates and the Defense Department. Just 2 years ago, he put out on his website that he got a new idea on HIV. He's still highly influential, this man. He's the guru of the HIV establishment. He put out on his website that anyone who fears that they've had a night of unguarded sex, that they're not trusting their partner, should go on antiretrovirals. A year later, the CDC made this official policy in the United States. It says on the CDC website that a person who is fearful because they suspect their partner or because a condom broke should go on a sharp course, say a month, of chemotherapy, of antiretroviral therapy, in order to stop getting infected. This is, these are drugs, when we use them against cancer, we watch the patients like a hawk, their hair falls out, we get them off the drugs as soon as possible. These patients are put on them for life. When they die on these drugs, they're said to die of AIDS. The manufacturers warn on one of the drugs used, this drug produces the same body wasting as found in AIDS cases. You see, it's very hard to attack an invisible virus. And this is true of all viruses. We've only got vaccines that give us antibodies, and then we claim that these antibodies stop the virus, or we try to stop the cell from making them. Because every virus that exists is made by cells. They're made by plant cells, fish cells, human cells. They're a natural product that even healthy cells make viruses. We're only now, leading biologists are now coming to understand why they do this. So to simply go from the presence of a virus to say it's the cause of an illness is jumping a very, very big gun. It's jumping a gorge. Because, see, our cells need to talk to each other. They need to send genetic codes from one to another. The wonderful Barbara McClintock, Nobel laureate, explained this. She was ridiculed at first. She's an inspiring woman in biology. She didn't get her Nobel laureate prize till she got to her 80s. Because what she had said was that plant cells are intelligent. And when she gave her Nobel laureate speech, she explained what she meant. It seems that all cells, whether they're in us or in plants, are constantly sniffing their environment and changing their DNA to give themselves protection. So tobacco smoke, modern toxins go past, the cell changes its DNA to give itself protection. Every cell, from plant or human, has got 5 feet of DNA that's like gossamer, it's like very fine silk, and it's rolled into the tightest of ball in the center of every cell that exists. And this is leading biology. No one challenged it. 5 feet, tightly encoded in 4s. Computers encode in 2. So these long strands are packed with information. And today our evolutionary biologists are unraveling these codes, because these codes show how we evolved over the last few millions, hundreds of millions of years. Over 1/3 of our genome has been shared between cells because it's got the fingerprints of retroviruses on it. Because when a cell makes the code it wants, it does it with what is called a retrotransposon, which is like an engineer that's only the size of a molecule. And they are first described by the brilliant Barbara McClintock. They work hard changing the DNA. This is what hospital superbugs do. That's how they protect themselves against drugs in hospitals. But it's how my nose cells do, my fingers, everything does. All cells do this. They adjust their DNA to protect us. Sometimes they will go, eureka, and say, right, we've got the answer. This new bit of DNA is what we need, gives us protection. Now, we're multicellular creatures, and it's silly to say that every cell of our body has to invent the wheel for itself. The next thing that little bit of code has to do is to get to other cells. It adds a small piece of DNA, called an MA domain, to the end of a retrotransposon. That turns it into a retrovirus. Yes, the retrovirus, the same thing that we're blaming on AIDS. The cell then buds it out through its soft membrane, its skin, which is very pliable. Proteins form around it to protect the precious cargo of a lovely new piece of DNA. It goes out into the space between our cells. It's got markers on the outside to tell the cells what it's got inside it. Other cells reach out for it, draw it into themselves, take that precious cargo, and they put it in their inner sanctum. They put it in their genome, in their DNA. They incorporate it. That's how much they trust it, and that's how they've done for the last few 100 million years. And that's why we find 1/3 of our DNA has been transported from cell to cell. It's how we evolved. It's how all creatures evolved. The retrovirus is now being found at the center for human life, for all life on our planet. And this is transforming biology.
And yet this is the very same concept that Gallo and others were looking to say was a pathology, the cause of AIDS. We only have a few minutes left for this part of our discussion. Who else would like to ask a question or make a statement in the audience? Please, Steve.
Just today in the car radio, I heard an announcement that there was some new discoveries about AIDS. And it said that evidence indicates that AIDS is older than we thought, that instead of coming on the scene in about 1930, it's probably earlier from analyzing DNA.
That's what I was saying before. The body can change CD4s into CD8s. Because CD8s are the natural killer cells. When you've got a pathogen in your blood and your blood wants to get rid of it quick, it doesn't need